is Daphne, and I am sitting in the shade under the umbrella with the elderberry behind me, trying to at least get away from the sun because it is beaming today. And it's actually supposed to get hotter throughout the rest of the week, so pray for us. But it's going to get hotter, but there's no rain in the forecast, so I do need to water the entire garden tomorrow morning. I also need to fertilize as well. Some of the plants are actually showing signs that they do need to be fertilized. Um, as mentioned, I typically do bury like kitchen scraps and stuff like that underneath my seedlings, but it takes a while for those things to decompose or for the bugs to eat and poop out the kitchen scraps underneath the plants. So I do have to kind of fertilize at least within the beginning parts of the season. So I'm going to show you guys what I actually fertilize with. I rarely, if ever, buy fertilizers from the stores or the big box stores, only because I've had really bad experiences with those. And my personal opinion is that you want to feed the soil and you want to feed the animals, well, the insects and the microbes within the soil, because they in turn will feed your plants. So I have noticed that most of the fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers within the stores, they feed your plants, but a lot of the bugs within your soils don't like them. And I actually did an experiment about that a few years ago. A lot of the containers that I actually use the synthetic fertilizers for, there were no earthworms in those containers. And there's another YouTuber that actually did a similar experiment and found the exact same thing. But if you bury kitchen scraps and use a lot of homemade fertilizers, you have a ton of microbes and a ton of earthworms within your garden beds. So when I started to see the difference in that, I started to begin researching how to make my own fertilizers. So I'll show you guys at least 3 that I use, 2 of which I actually make myself. And then I'll also link a really great book that will show you guys how to make your own fertilizers. I'm not affiliated with this book or the company that makes the book, but I do think it's a really great book. And me and my friend are actually testing out a few of their fertilizers, and they've been really great. So I'll show you guys that book as well. And then I'll also show you how I make the fertilizers that I will be using to water my plants within the next few weeks. So if you are interested in that, stay tuned. All right, so this is my fertilizer station over here. And I'll tell you guys what's in these buckets and how I go about making two of the fertilizers that I actually use here. One of which I actually purchased, which I'll show you now. These are just tools here. But this fish fertilizer, Alaska fish fertilizer, I actually got one of these. Well, I got 6 of these on sale. Each one was $1, which is a great steal. I got these about 2 years ago, and I've actually only gone through like 1 bottle. So it's a really, really great fertilizer, really, really great for nitrogen. And I've noticed that the earthworms don't seem to mind when you fertilize with it as well, and the microbes. And it also kind of seems to help as a squirrel repellent to some degree. And I've also noticed less slug pressure when I actually do use this as well. So I definitely recommend fish fertilizer. I recommend it most specifically if you can find it on clearance at the end of the season. But even if you do need to buy it full retail, it's a really good fertilizer to have. And 1 bottle for me is enough for me for the entire season, both the spring, summer gardening season, as well as the fall, winter. So it does last me at least a good year. So one of the second fertilizers that I use in the garden quite frequently, and I can make it at home, is Comfrey tea fertilizers. So what you want to do, Comfrey, and then I also mix in a bunch of dandelion as well. With this fertilizer, you basically want to use any type of plant. Well, I wouldn't say any type of plant, but specifically you can use dandelion, you can use burdock, and you can use comfrey. The reason for these 3 in particular is because they actually have very, very long tap roots. So for comfrey, the tap roots can be 5, 6, 7 feet long. Similar with dandelion, and I know that burdock has a very, very long tap root. They are able to actually go within the soil and bring up a lot of nutrients that other plants can't reach. So for burdock, if you have burdock growing, if you have dandelion growing, and I know that you can also eat dandelion as well, but we're not going to eat this today. But if you have dandelion, if you have burdock, and I have a bunch of, not burdock, but comfrey, and I have a bunch of comfrey going to seed, flowers everywhere, and I don't need a lot of it. So I've actually just been collecting it. Just put it inside of like a 5-gallon bucket. I got these from Menards, no need to drill any holes. And what you're going to do is you're going to actually chop this up really, really fine inside of the bucket. So and if you are using dandelion or burdock, you do want to wear gloves. They do have spikes on them. You can even use mullein as well, but mullein has a lot of other really great uses. So I tend to use mullein for the herbal remedies, and I'll use the other three just for comfrey teas. So take this out the bucket. You just want to take your shears and just chop it into small pieces. It doesn't have to be really uniform. It just needs to be small enough where you can add water and not have it be so bulky. Some of these you can actually rip as well, but I do find that it's more consistent if I just chop it up. And obviously watch your fingers on this. All right. And you don't need much. I actually buy like 5, 6, 7 buckets at a time. And I'll actually make a couple of buckets worth of comfrey tea, as well as fish fertilizer. You can let that sit out as well. Be mindful that you do need buy a couple of caps or a couple of tops for the 5-gallon buckets. You will need them. This stuff smells horrific. The 511, everyone knows that smells. That's a fish fertilizer, but this smells to the high holy days. You do want to put a lid over this. So here's your comfrey. And with the comfrey, you can kind of, it is a little stringy, but you can also kind of rip this up as well. It's a small little chunks. And then when you get down to the base and it's really, really hard to rip, then at that point you can use your shears here. Let's get the rest of our comfrey in here. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be kind of broken down enough so that you don't have an overflow when you add your water. All right. Comfrey, burdock, dandelion. All right. So it's all chopped up in here. And then what I would normally do is I would add rainwater. City water is fine. If you have city water, definitely add it. But if you do have rain barrels, fill this up at least maybe leave about 2 to 3 inches from the top. But fill this up with rainwater. The reason I would say that is because there are microbes also on the leaves. I do find that if city water has not set for 2 to 3 days, you still have the chlorine and the fluoride and everything else in that water, and it tends to kill off a lot of the microbes that you actually want in your fertilizer. You want a fertilizer that's alive and thriving, that can feed your soil. Chlorine, fluoride, everything in the tap water is designed to kill off that type of stuff, kill off the microbes. So if you do have rainwater, definitely use that, and rainwater has living things in it too, right? But if you have city water, that's fine. I would actually recommend putting some city water in a bucket, letting it sit for 24 to 48 hours, and then adding it to your bucket. That way you know that at least the chlorine and everything else is kind of like, hopefully, filtered off or dissolved or whatever it's going to do. So I actually do have rain barrels. I'm going to actually fill this up at least part of the way with some rainwater, and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so for demonstration purposes, I have put a little bit of rainwater in here, but what you guys would want to do is actually just fill it up all the way to the top. And like I said, leave about 1 inch room because it does start to get a little bubbly in here. You don't want it to overflow, and that's what attracts the flies. And trust me, you don't want the flies coming. But you will actually just like fill it up, leave about 1 inch, and then you will want to put just a lid directly over this. Make sure the lid is tight, and then sit it in I would say cool place, but it's hot as hell out here. Sit it in some shade with the lid on, and just let it sit for about a week. I would say a week minimum. A month would be great. A month and over would be wonderful. I've actually had compost tea marinating in the garage for 6 months or over the winter, and it was perfect. So this is the comfrey tea that has been sitting in the garage for 6 months. So I'm going to set this little beauty to the side here. And then I'm going to open this with fear and trembling. Now, I have used some of this in the garden earlier, but this tea is already ready. And it's been, like I said, it was sitting for 6 months. And so I'll show you what this looks like. All right, so it's not necessarily as putrid as that fish fertilizer, but this is 6 months worth of comfrey tea. And as mentioned, this is not the bottom of the bucket. This is just a 3-gallon bucket. But if you can see, everything is kind of liquefied into a nice black goo. And when I lift this, all of the water kind of drains into the 5-gallon bucket. So I'll show you that. Just don't want to make too much of a mess here. But you have a nice, I don't know what that is floating in there. I don't even think I want to know. But yeah, you have a nice batch of comfrey tea directly in here. And depending on how wide your holes are in the bottom of this bucket, you won't have so much sediment. And then you would definitely need to dilute this. I would actually say one cup comfrey tea to about maybe 5 to 10 parts water. And you can definitely use, like I've actually used this on seedlings, but you must dilute this. But I've used it on seedlings, I've used it on my tomato plants, my peppers, my herbs. It's great stuff. I actually do need to probably get this like tested to see what the nutrient component is, but my plants love it. So here's your comfrey tea, and here is 6 months worth of the comfrey leaves. I just set the buckets directly back on top of each other. As mentioned, this bucket has holes in it, just to allow for it to just the comfrey tea to flow down. And you can also just directly add some more leaves. So with the leaves that we just made, literally we can just, and I'm gonna stand back because I don't want any of this stuff splashing on me personally. But that's rainwater being added, and that is more comfrey being added. And then the only thing you would do is just close the lid. Make sure that it's nice and closed. And then you do just want to lift this and put this in a, like I said, I just put it in the shade. Don't have it sitting in direct sunlight. I wouldn't do that. But have it sitting in some type of shade, and you can leave it. Like I said, I've had mine for 6 months, and every time I use it, I just add some more rainwater to the top barrel, and I also just add more comfrey or burdock or dandelion. And you have fertilizer for the rest of the season. And then any fertilizer you have left over, you can use that as a starter mix for what you will be making in the fall, because you will be making this again in the fall. Just chop down all of your old comfrey that is dying off for the winter, and literally just sit this in your garage. And now you have fertilizer for next spring, and you don't even have to purchase it. So number 2 fertilizer is comfrey tea. Comfrey, burdock, dandelion root, or dandelion tea. Not the root. Dandelion root is used for other things. So don't use the root, just use the leaves. All right, so fertilizer number 3 is kitchen scrap fertilizer, or compost fertilizer, not comfrey, but compost tea. So this is about 3 to 4 days worth of kitchen scraps here, and this is the 3-gallon bucket, and it's quite heavy. In here there are potato peels, and there are watermelon rinds, and carrot peels, and orange peels, and just base level stuff that you would use around the house. Some people say don't use onions or garlic, but I don't care, because it's all going to kind of ferment into mush in the bucket anyway. But yeah, the only thing I would say not to use for this, or any type of compost, for me personally, I don't use any meat, and we also don't use anything cooked. So cooked food, we don't use that for compost. Only like the peels for the fruit and vegetables and stuff. So anyway, we have a bucket of compost. Most of it I actually put in the compost bin, but in the cases where I'm actually going to make compost tea, I actually just save it in the bucket. This was pretty simple, but you do want to wear gloves for this. You're not chopping anything up. A lot of that process is actually done in the kitchen. So when you are actually placing peels and such in your compost bin, which I actually just keep in the kitchen, we rinse it out every time we dump it. You just want to make sure that the peels are as small as they can be. So you don't want to put like any whole oranges in here. You don't want to put any whole like mangoes or anything that's gone bad. Any bananas you have, you want to peel those and just cut them up into smaller bits, and you can do that in the house before they putrefy in here, because doing it in this process is kind of gross. So do that in the kitchen before it kind of putrefies, so that you don't have to worry about it once you get outside. But anyway, you would just take this, and I have 5-gallon bucket. For demonstration purposes, I'm using the same one I cut the comfrey up in, but I have several of these just laying around the property. So As mentioned, neither one of these have holes drilled in the bottom. But you're just going to take this and just dump it. And that juice is grape juice. And then you'll just like literally just take some water, sprinkle this around, wash this out, and just dump all of that good water in here as well. So now all of your compost is in this bucket. And then what you want to do is the same thing you did for the Comfrey tea. You just want to fill this all the way up with rainwater or city water that has sat for 24 to 48 hours, because you don't want to kill your microbes. They're great. If you have any decomposing like leaf matter or leaf mold, like if you like peel back under the layers of like your mulch or your leaves, if you see any white matter, dump that in there as well. Dump that in all of your compost teas, because that is leaf mold, and that is essential. That is like the best stuff to ever have. So I don't think I have any right now. I'll take a picture and show you guys what that looks like. But if you can find that on your property, and it's usually underneath your wood chips or underneath like your leaf, like if you mulch with leaves, rake back several inches of that and you'll find leaf mold. Dump that in here as well. It's a great starter for your compost teas. So that's it. And also you can use your yarrow leaves as well. Yarrow will actually help this break down a lot quicker. So anybody that has compost bins, or if you have a compost bin, 1 or 2 yarrow leaves is all you need to put that in here, and it will help to like decompose everything a lot quicker. And it's good for your plants too. It is a plant. It's good for it. So anyway, we'll add water to this with the food in it. Once you add the water, you will literally add a lid, seal the lid because it's going to smell. And then you will let it sit in the shade directly with the Comfrey tea. At minimum, you want it to sit for a week. At max, I don't think there's a max, but at any case, I hope this has been beneficial for you, and I hope that you guys actually are making your own compost teas and fertilizers. And definitely drop a comment in the comment section and let me know what you use in your garden, because I can also use some additional information as well. And then I was going to tell you about this book called Jadam, which I'll link here. The book is it's a really great book. I've actually skimmed through it, but my friend has actually made the inoculant for the soil. I think it uses molasses and like potato peels and a bunch of other stuff that you already have around your house that would inoculate your soil and allow for your soil to actually be more of a to actually be healthier, to support your plants and the peas and I don't know, whatever the process is with that. I think it's great. And a lot of the stuff that the book talks about and uses, you actually have in your house. So I definitely would recommend this book. As mentioned, I'm not an affiliate with the book. It's something that I would definitely advertise. It's a great book, and everything in the book you can make at home. So let me know how it goes. Let me know if you actually made any of the ingredients out of the book, or if you have had any success within the prior years with some stuff that you've done around your garden. That is a DIY. I love that. But anyway, here's my cat. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.